All right, so here's the last page of the review. And so first we're going to look at the composite functions. So we're going to start with part A. So let's see, we're going to do f of g of x. And so that's the notation that's going to be given on the exam. And so you want to realize that that's the same thing as just substituting the g function into the f function. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to replace g of x right here. So let's see, that gives us f of 4x minus 1. And so we want to substitute that in right here into the f function. So you want to put the 4x minus 1 in parentheses because you're squaring that quantity. And then we'll have our plus 3 right there. That's part of the original f function. So when you square this, it's not 4x squared plus 1 squared. You need to actually break it apart and FOIL it. Or I'm going to kind of do the shortcut here, the pattern that occurs on this right here. So the pattern is square the first one. So that's 16x squared. Multiply these together and double it. So that's a minus 4x, but then we double it to minus 8x. Then you square the negative 1, which turns to a plus 1. And then you still have that plus 3 right there, okay? So if you don't like the shortcut, break it apart, FOIL it, but that's something that saves you a little bit of time. And so then we'll just go ahead and combine these like terms right here. So we get 16x squared minus 8x plus 4. Don't worry about factoring it, even though you could factor out a 4 or something like that. We're just going to go ahead and leave it like this, okay? All right. Now we'll look at it as g of f of x, and this one's actually going to be easier than that first one. So once again, you got to recognize this notation is just referring to substituting the f function into the g function. So this time we're going to replace this here right there, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and write that out though. So the f function is x squared plus 3. Oops. Got away from me there. All right, so x squared plus 3. And so we'll go ahead and substitute it in right here. And so let's see if I can fix this. All right. So what we're going to so we get 4 times x squared plus 3, and then you have that minus 1 right there. So you do want to go ahead and distribute the 4. So let's see, we get 4x squared plus 12 and then minus 1. And then we go ahead and we'll combine that together right there. So 4x squared plus, that'll turn into 11 right there. Okay. And there you go. So that shouldn't give you too much trouble. All right, now we're going to look at inverse functions. So right here, you're going to be asked to find the inverse function of these right here. And so if you remember, it's just a simple 4-step process. So we're going to start by replacing that with y. And then we want to go ahead and do a little swap. So we're going to swap that right there. All right, and then now you just solve for that y. Oops. Let's undo that. All right, so we're going to add 3. And then we'll go ahead and add 3 right here. So that cancels out. So let's see, we're left with x plus 3 equals 4y. Okay, sorry, that's a little messy here. Then last, you want to go ahead and divide by 4. And so we get y equals x plus 3 divided by 4. And then just to kind of clarify that it's our inverse function, we'll use our function notation, x plus 3 all divided by 4. And there we go. Okay, next two, very similar. So here we go. So we'll go ahead and replace this with a y. Square root of 3x minus 4. And so we go ahead and do a little swap here. So x equals the square root of 3y minus 4. And so we need to nullify the radical. So what we'll do here is we'll go ahead and square both sides. And so now we get x squared equals, it nullifies the radical, 3y minus 4. And then we just go ahead and solve for y, and we should be in good shape. So that cancels out. So let's see, x squared plus 4 equals 3y. And then divide by 3, that cancels out. Then I'll just write it with function notation down here. And so that's going to be x squared plus 4 all over 3. And that's what you're looking at. All right, last one of this type. This one should be fairly simple. So let's just start by writing y equals x cubed plus 4. Then we'll go ahead and do a little swap right here. So x equals y to the third power plus 4. And we'll go ahead and subtract 4 from both sides. That cancels out. So we end up with y cubed equals x minus 4. And then to get rid of the cube power, we take the cube root of both sides. And so this simplifies down into y equals the cube root of x minus 4. And then once again, just using our function notation for inverse functions, cube root of x minus 4 right there. All right. Okay, and so now I have, I think I only have one left. Okay, this won't be too bad. This is pretty simple. It says use the graph of f in the figure and draw the graph of the inverse function. So we'll just go ahead and label these points right here. So let's see, that's -3, -1. That point right there is at 0, 0. And this point is at 2, 4. And so the way this works is real simple. You take your x and y values and you just switch them. So you write y and then you write x. So you just flip-flop them, and that'll give you the graph of your inverse function. So we're going to flip-flop that to -1, -3 down here. Flip-flop 0, 0 is kind of silly. It stays at 0, 0. Flip-flop 2, 4 to where now it's 4, 2. And then we'll go ahead and connect these dots here. And there you go. That is the inverse right there.